Hi guys, what was D-Day? Chapter 5, Dropping into the Darkness. All right. Just after midnight. Here we are, just after midnight. What number are we going to have our big hand and our little hand on for midnight? 12. Okay. Just after midnight on June 6th, 1944, the largest air fleet in history began winging its way across the English Channel. More than 800 planes lifted off from the air bases scattered around England. In the air, the planes formed perfect long lines. About 20,000 paratroopers were on board. They were going to parachute into enemy territory in the dark. Why were they going to be in the dark? Yes, Gia. So nobody sees them. What had to be up in the sky? A full moon. So here we have midnight, June 6, 1944, largest air fleet in history. Who are they? The Allies. And over how many? 800 planes. All right, let's check it out. Okay. Usually, the paratroopers joked around with one another. Many had become good friends after training hard together for nearly 2 years. But that night, the men sat quietly, deep in their own thoughts, said General Matthew B. Ridgway. No doubt they were thinking ahead to their dangerous goal. They had to take control of the important bridges and roads that led away from the beaches. These routes were the only way Allies could move big numbers of troops inland, and right now they were heavily guarded by Germans. The Allies had already destroyed other major bridges, roads, and so these routes were key. The airplanes neared Normandy at 1:30 a.m. Suddenly, planes started rocking wildly and veered off course. The air blazed with tracer bullets fired from German guns on the ground. Blue, green, and yellow streaks lit up the sky like fireworks. Soldiers lurched inside as their planes took hits. The shells sounded like someone threw a keg of nails against the side of an airplane, said Sergeant Dan Furlong. Airplanes turned into death traps. Pilots opened hatch doors and flashed the green light to signal for paratroopers to jump. According to the plan, it was much too soon. The locations where they were supposed to land were still far away, and yet it was safer to jump than to stay aboard the aircraft. Okay, so the airplanes were in perfect lines. They were in formation, right? And what happened to the Allies' planes? Bam, 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 bam. Were they bombs or was it guns? Guns. And were they keeping the planes whole or destroying them? So what happened? The paratroopers had to jump out. And they said, oh no, it's too soon. Jump now. How many paratroopers were there? 20. And where were they going? France. Normandy, France, right. Okay, let's see. The green light popped on. Geronimo! Go, Geronimo! And we all jumped, said Trooper Carl Cartledge. I've never been so glad to get out of an airplane in my life. Chaos filled the sky. Thousands of planes were swerving off course, trying not to collide. Enemy machine fire, boom, 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 caught troopers in the air. Burning aircraft exploded and plunged into the earth. Troopers landed all over, in the fields, trees, and barns. Hardly any ended up in the correct spot. Some troopers hit the ground at high speeds. They stayed black and blue for days. Landing in water was even worse. Paratroopers plunged into the fields that Germans had flooded in order to block the advance of Allied troops. Did they have heavy packs? So if they were soaking wet, was it super duper duper heavy or light? Super duper duper heavy. Fighting for their lives, soldiers struggled to break free from heavy gear and tangled chutes. Hundreds drowned because they were so heavy. Yeah. 17-year-old Ken Russell dangled from the roof of the village church. Ken had lied about his age in order to join the army. In Normandy, he managed to free himself and jumped 20 feet to the ground when he went into combat on his own against Germans firing at Allied planes. Later, he met up with more paratroopers to attack German gun sites. Thousands of other troopers also landed alone and lost in the dark. Look, this guy landed on top of a tower. So was it ideal? No. The men were supposed to link up with their units as soon as they were on the ground. On D-Day, however, for most, this never happened. Instead, they joined up with men they'd never seen before, or they fought alone. They fought Germans wherever they found them, inventing attack planes on the spot. Lieutenant Richard Dick Winters, a paratrooper from a team called Easy Company, landed in the middle of nowhere without a gun. His rifle had been whipped away in the air. Winters unstrapped the knife from his ankle and set out to find 32 men in his troop. Suddenly, figures loomed in the darkness ahead. Were they friend or were they foe? Winters snapped his cricket. Remember the clicker that they had on them that did codes? It was a tiny clicker that troopers used to identify each other at night. He heard 2 clicks back. Click, click, clack, click, clack. Good! Whew, that meant Allied troops. Luckily, Winters found 5 men from his own troop, the Easy Company. Look, he was ready. He had his clicker, he had his knife, and he was going to go. Eventually, 13 men of Easy Company linked up on D-Day. Their commander was missing. He died when the plane exploded. So Winters became the leader. The small force captured 4 big enemy cannons that were tearing up Utah Beach, even though the Germans guarding the tanks outnumbered them 4-1. Way to go, Allies! The brave efforts of the paratroopers met with other successes. German soldiers couldn't make sense of the scattered attack pattern, and they failed to counterattack. Most important. I just lost my spot. The paratroopers seized key exit bridges and roads. So they were stopping the bad guys. Who were they? The Nazis, yeah. However, by the end of D-Day, the paratroopers had suffered a terrible toll. About 1 in 5 was killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. As a result, the U.S. military never had troops parachute in at night again. Silent wings. Not all paratroopers flew in on planes. Hundreds of gliders made of plywood also carried paratroopers. Since they had no engines, the gliders were pulled across the channel by planes. The tow rope was released a couple of hundred yards from the landing site. From there, glider pilots steered the drifting planes the rest of the way to the ground. Just after midnight on June 6, gliders landed only feet away from 2 major bridges over the Caen Canal and the Orne River. Stunned German guards soon surrendered the bridges, giving Allies their first victory on D-Day. Awesome. So let's recap. Are you ready? Okay. What time did the paratroopers go down? What? Midnight. And was it the smallest or biggest air fleet? Biggest. Over how many planes? How many Allied planes? Oh, yes. And how did they fly? All wonky? Straight, perfect lines. Why do you think they did that? Yes, sir. Yep. How many paratroopers were there? 20,000 paratroopers. And they went out at midnight. They ended up dropping down around 1:30. Did they drop down in the spot that they wanted to? Why? What happened? What? Okay, let's let somebody else answer too. Yeah, who started shooting? The Nazis started shooting at the Allies what? Planes. And what did they say? Jump now! But it was too soon. Were they at Normandy? Where did they go where they were supposed to go? No, they were in fields and water. They got trapped in trees and buildings. What happened? One in every 5 paratroopers died. Did they ever do a night drop again? No. What happened when they dropped and they were alive and okay? What did they use to find each other? The clicker. Because they had codes, right? So they didn't have to do it out loud. All right. So thanks, guys. We looked up paratroopers and we had a really good time figuring out there's some really great World War II paratrooper stuff out on YouTube. Thanks, guys.